attention. We would like to open up the special meeting of the Cameron County Commissioners Court, Tuesday, the 17th day of October 2006. It's at 7 o'clock. The item on the agenda is a rededication ceremony for the 1912 Cameron County Courthouse Oscar C. Dancy Building. This is the first Cameron County Commissioners meeting held in this courthouse in about 30 years. And with that, I would like to introduce the president of the University of Texas at Brownsville, Dr. Juliet Garcia, our master of ceremony.
Es un placer estar con ustedes ahora en la tarde. It is a great honor to be invited here for this wonderful rededication. So I'd like to thank the court for that opportunity and that honor bestowed on me and on the university. I think the people who deserve a round of applause are the commissioners and our judge for returning this gem to us. So before we start, and in honor of those that may not be recognized all tonight, please accept our most grateful thanks for all that you have done. There are many ways to express thanks during such an occasion, and today we've come together to express words of congratulations and to learn about the many people who have led this endeavor along the way. There are many in your program that probably we won't have time to acknowledge, but please take a look at the very back page of your program. Not only are all of those people individually and in unison important contributors in their own way to the restoration project, but many others that perhaps aren't going to appear here. The gardeners who were preparing the gardens today, the maintenance workers and janitors who were making sure the floors were perfectly polished, the secretaries who even cleaned up their desks so that we could visit and tour their buildings, the security guards that are outside. And so while not listed here, we know that in order to do something of this nature, this large and this important, it takes many, many people, often not those receiving the accolades only. So thank everyone that you know is somehow connected with the history in our community and certainly with the preservation of this building tonight. To officially begin our rededication, we are very, very honored to have the Most Reverend Raimundo Peña, Bishop of the Diocese of Brownsville. Please stand.
Oremos. Almighty God and Father, in your wise providence, you guide and bless the work of our minds as well as the work of our hands. We gather this evening to rededicate this historic building. It is a sign of the work of the minds, hands, and hearts of the men and women of generations past, who guided the life and destiny of this county under the indomitable leadership of Judge Oscar C. Dancy and his various successors in the office of county judge. It is a sign as well of the work of the hands, minds, and hearts of men and women of our own generation who have exercised good judgment in deciding to preserve the rich history of what we had to come to know as the old courthouse. As we rededicate this memorable site and place, we pray that you endow those who will work and plan in this building with wisdom, understanding, and concern for the good of others, especially the poor and the underprivileged. May our elected officials and their staffs come to good decisions, and may they carry them out fairly for the good of all the citizens of Cameron County and for the glory of your name. You are Lord and God. To you be glory and praise now and forever. Amen.
Please remain standing for the presentation of the colors for the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem. Presenting the colors is the Los Fresnos High School Navy. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Joshua Everton Kennerly, the 7-year-old great-grandson of Judge Oscar Dancy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The national anthem will be led by UT Brownsville professor Antonio Briceño.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. Judge Gilberto Hinojosa is a 1978 graduate of Georgetown University Law Center, and along with his wife, Cindy, they are the proud parents of 4 children. The appointee of 2 Texas governors to state office, Judge Gilberto Hinojosa has served as a county executive, a jurist, a state agency commissioner, and a school board trustee during his 22-year career in public service. During his tenure as a county and state judge and appeals court judge, Judge Hinojosa played a role in some of the most important criminal and civil cases in South Texas, including the lawsuit that led to the creation of the University of Texas at Brownsville. Since 1995, Judge Hinojosa has served as Cameron County Judge. Please help me in welcoming our County Judge, Gilberto Hinojosa.
Welcome to your courthouse. Before I give my remarks, I would like to introduce some of the people who are here with us today, starting with the Cameron County Commissioners Court that is serving today. We've had several members over the years that have worked on this project, but today the Cameron County Commissioners Court that we have serving during this year is we have Commissioner Pete Benavides, who, as you well know, is ill and in the hospital, and our prayers are with him and with his family. And I ask you also to continue to pray for Pete, that God may perform a miracle and bring him back to us to take care of his family, to take care of his friends, and to help us get through these difficult times of his illness. Later on, his son will read some remarks on behalf of his wife, Sophie. We also have Commissioner for Precinct 2, John Wood. Here. We have Commissioner for Precinct 3, David Garza. And Commissioner for Precinct 4, Edna Tamayo. We have the Secretary of the court in the state of Texas is always the Cameron County Clerk, and we have with us today, longtime Cameron County Clerk Joe Rivera. We have many guests here with us today that will be introduced by our Master of Ceremonies, Dr. Garcia, but I would like, and we have a lot of elected officials here and people who have served our community and serve our community for many years. And instead of spending about an hour going through each name, what I'd like to do is ask all our elected officials who are here today to please stand up and be recognized. Please, if you're an elected official, stand up. And we have some elected officials on the top of the balcony, by the way, that you didn't see when they stand up if you're down here. Very briefly, let me tell you, I was talking to someone here the other day from the Brownsville Herald, and he was taking a tour of the facility, and he was asking, you know, why make an investment to renovate a building such as this? Why not just build a new courthouse? Why not just, you know, get an architect that's going to design something state-of-the-art and build a courthouse instead of spending all the time that was spent restoring this courthouse? Because what we have here is an effort that required an enormous amount of work. You had an old courthouse that had been completely converted to something else than what it was when it was built in 1912. This room, for example, was 2 rooms. It had been cut in half. That balcony had been closed off, and it was just an empty area, not being used for anything. None of the things that you see here today were here. This courthouse, in effect, had been gutted over the years, except for the areas, the common areas in the middle. Most of what you see at this courthouse did not exist a number of years ago. And so in deciding to restore this courthouse, it was a major, major effort. It not only required the restoration of the exterior of the courthouse, It required the demolition of the interior of the courthouse and then the redesign and the reconstruction of the interior, using old photographs, pieces of plaster that we found between the walls and so on and so forth. And as every day went by, we would find something new that we didn't anticipate, because we were talking about 100 years of things happening in this courthouse that needed to be redone to its original state. And my response to the gentleman from the Brownsville Herald was this: Brownsville is a city that is rich in history. Cameron County is a county that is rich in history. It is a community that goes back 200 years. It is a community that is a significant part of the history of the United States, of the history of northern Mexico, of the history of the Western Hemisphere. And there is so much in this community that makes us proud and will continue to make us proud for generations to come. And so I believe that as people who have been entrusted to do what's right for the community, that it is our responsibility to ensure that we preserve the history of this community as much as we can, that we preserve it for the people that live here, the people that want to come to see the beauty of this community, our children and their children for the future. It is something to be very proud of. We are proud today of this courthouse, not only because of what we did to restore it, but we're proud today of this courthouse for what was done in 1912, in building, in my opinion, the most beautiful courthouse in the state of Texas. And so if you have something so beautiful, a jewel, a diamond, such as what you have here today, then it is our obligation to bring it back, to make it the way it was, to leave it as a legacy for future generations, and to make Cameron County proud once again to have this courthouse. That's why we're here today. That's why we did what we did, and that's why we believe it was the right thing to do. Thank you very much for being here, and God bless you tonight.
We have many esteemed guest speakers today that include elected officials, the architect, and members of the Texas Historical Commission, all who have contributed individually and in an important way to the restoration project. With your permission and with theirs, I'm going to dispense with very well-deserved introductions in order to allow them more time to recount their own unique participation in the restoration of this very grand building. First, our elected officials and the architect for the restoration. History has a way of weaving our lives inextricably together, sometimes in more obvious ways and often others much more oblique. In our community, the University of Texas seems to connect many of us. Both our mayor and our state representative earned their law degrees from UT Austin's renowned law school. The architect earned his degree in architecture from the University of Texas at Austin's architecture school. And both our senator and our state representative carried bills that established the newest UT institution, the University of Texas at Brownsville. Please help me welcome first the Honorable Eddie Trevino, Mayor of the City of Brownsville.
Did a great job on the pledge, by the way. Good evening, everyone. Honorable Judge, members of the County Commissioners Court, elected officials, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The judge asked me to be brief in my comments here tonight about this building. Wow. Wow. I tell you what, a few years ago, when we had the honor, distinction on behalf of the Brownsville City Commission to move into our new surroundings at the old United States Federal Courthouse in downtown Brownsville, we were very, very proud of the fact that we had renovated and kept alive an old building that had its own flavor. When the judge and the Commissioners Court continued working in this endeavor many, many years ago, through some obstacles, I have to tell you, if our City Commission chambers is an A, I have to give an A+ to the County Commissioner Chambers. Congratulations, y'all done a wonderful job. The judge alluded to something very, very important that he and I have discussed many, many times, along with many members of the commission. Brownsville is one of the most historical cities, not in this state, but in this country. And the judge alluded to it. It's arguable that the birthplace of the western United States took place here in Brownsville as a result of the battles at Palo Alto and Resaca del Palma. There's no question but that the last engagement of the United States Civil War took place here, 30 days after Appomattox. And this courthouse was built in 1912. Just imagine, ladies and gentlemen, the plan had been to destroy, to raise this courthouse many, many years ago. What would have happened if these individuals, along with so many of you here in the audience, so many that could not be with us this evening, so many people from this community, from throughout the state, had not made an effort, a concerted effort to make sure that this crown jewel was preserved for all history. You can only know where you're going if you know where you've been. And thanks to the efforts of many, many people, many generations to come are going to be able to enjoy and learn from the historical significance that this courthouse represents, not just in the past, but for the future. I'm glad to say that the City of Brownsville participated a little bit. Part of the work that we did was trying to figure out a way, because obviously we want to make this another tourist attraction for the City of Brownsville, for Cameron County. We wanted to figure out how we could safely have pedestrians getting in and out of our historical downtown and obviously here at the courthouse. So we, through the efforts at the City Commission and the County Court, we went ahead and closed. And we also helped assist in the landscaping. Hopefully our job is well appreciated and brings the aesthetic value outside of the courtroom, since we all already can see what a wonderful job they did on the interior. However, what's most important and impressive about this restoration project is that this building will continue to be an integral part of our county government. Oftentimes, and we've seen this too often, old buildings are not restored, and even if they are, they're no longer put to use. I want to congratulate Judge Hinojosa and the Commissioner's Court on the culmination of many, many years of effort to see this project to its fruition. It is your building. It's been rebuilt with your money. Admire it, use it often. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, let's take care of it. It belongs to future generations, especially so many of the people that are here in this room this evening. May God continue to bless Cameron County and the state of Texas and all of you that had a part in this. Thank you for having me here this evening.
The Honorable Rene Oliveira and the Honorable Eddie Lucio Jr. were not able to join us tonight, but had an important role also in the restoration of this building. But someone who is here tonight and who should receive lots of accolades from every one of you today is the architect who was in charge of this restoration project. Please help me welcome Mr. Roberto J. Ruiz.
Thank you very much, Dr. Garcia. They've asked me to put a presentation of 10 years in about 5 minutes. Can that be possible? I don't think so. But let me tell you, it's been a great experience. My effort in trying to get this project going, it goes back from the time that I started this project. And I want to thank the Cameron County Commissioners at that time, Judge Gilberto Hinojosa, for asking me to participate in this great endeavor. I mean, I cannot fulfill my heart to know this. But anyway, I want to commend Judge Hinojosa at that time for having the perseverance, the dedication, and the vision to see this project. You know all the history of the courthouse, of what happened in the past with contractors and architects. At that point, Judge Hinojosa could have said, let's stop this project. He didn't. He saw a vision, and I commend him for having that vision to see it come true. I want to thank this court for their support. Over this past couple of years, we've been here off and on trying to bring them up to date. It's been challenging, it's been an effort, but I think it's been well worth it. I want to thank every one of them for being here. I want to thank previous commissioners that have been supportive of this endeavor, and as well as different commissions. I've been here for 10 years, so I've seen many commissioners, but I've seen Judge Hinojosa here all this time. It's been challenging, but we're very thankful for all that. I want to thank also, in part, as this project went on, the Texas Historical Commission. Chairman Now has been here with us. Mr. Ituria has been with us here. Mr. Ituria has been involved from day one. And if you know Mr. Ituria, he has been involved with a lot of the historical restorations here in town. He's been an institution, and he is promoting and seeing that through. With this endeavor, we managed to work with the city to close off the street, like the mayor was saying. That was a great challenge. We needed additional parking. The funding, half the funding for the interior renovation came in great part to Mr. Ituria and his devotion to pursue that. I want to thank Larry Oaks, Stan Graves, Sharon Fleming. Sharon Fleming, my architect up in Austin, we've been knowing each other for 10 years through this restoration process. There's been highs and lows, but I think we managed to work through all of them. And I think with her participation, a lot of the finite details that you see throughout the courthouse have been in great part to her endeavor about making sure we carry that on through. Also want to bring out my design team. They were very influential in making a lot of the decisions early on, and I won't bore you with names, but I must bring these names today up front. Charles Clark with CRC Engineering. A lot of the historical lighting and everything that you see as far as behind the scenes was part of that design factor. Perry Schneider, our structural engineer. A lot of, when we came in here, we just didn't know where to step because you step in the wrong place. Your foot can go through the floor. But, a lot of these things we had to be reviewed by our structural engineer. We great part to him. Jim Rose from Mejia and Rose, our civil engineer, with the landscaping, the parking, all that involved. And we have a lot of work from that. Meg Yorn, Amy Pena from Megamorphosis Interior Design. That was a great help in selecting furniture, colors, and some other things that we worked with them. Scott Pajeski, SSP, landscape design. We worked with the city in trying to put the landscaping that we required, but again, bring the grounds to their natural beauty the way that we're here in 1912. David Hanawa with Ambiotech, an environmental engineer. There was a lot of asbestos. There was a lot of lead abatement that had to be done. It had to be, taken care of. My wife, Laurie, she cannot be here with us. She has some personal things that she has to take with at home, but my devotion to her, because we're a two-man party. My wife and I are here to make sure that this project went through, and I have a lot of admiration for her because she's helped tremendously. I want to thank the contractor, Joe R. Jones Construction, Stephen back there, Lee Evans. They have worked tremendously on this project. We have highs and lows again with them, but I think, with their effort, we managed to pull this through. There's a lot of coordination that was done. A lot of the subcontractors, there's some subcontractors here like Brico that worked on the project. Without that team effort, none of this would have taken place. One of the things the commissioners decided early on is try to get as many local providers here, and that's a decision that they made. We have Felipe Garcia with Temp Control, Carlos Barrera, and crew with Global Electric. A lot of this, contractors would have been brought down from elsewhere, but, they were push, and worked with the Texas Historical Commission about seeing that this thing got through, and we did it with a lot of local help, which is, really, really nice. We also like to thank Mid-Continental Restoration for their exterior restoration. They were one of the first ones that were here to do that type of work, major restoration on the exterior. Also, Phoenix Construction. They did a lot of the demolition of non-historic material that took place because, believe you me, when I stepped in this building, it was a total mess, you may say. There was partitions, divisions, walls, there were everything you could possibly think of, it was here. Of course, that had to go through a process, and I'll get a little bit into that. I want to also, and I don't want to bore you with, but I think this is a great time to do it, the staff of Cameron County. I think there's a lot of, devotion that they took place for them being here with me and with us to making sure this was through. Frank Bejarano with the Planning Department. The Master Grant Program that we applied to the Texas Historical Commission was in great part to him because we had to make an application. We got funding from them. Mike Forbes with the Purchasing Department, he's assisted a lot of us in being here, make sure the bids were carried on through. Mark Gates and Robert Allman with the Auditor's Office, they were here to make sure that things were all perfected, and they attended a lot of the meetings. Rudy Suarez and Jim Roberts with a computer, a lot of telephone system, a lot of wiring behind the walls that took place. We had to coordinate with their staff. And then Marcelino Ibarra with the Maintenance Department. I don't know where Marcelino is, but he has just done a wonderful job. This bench right here was recreated by their staff. In other words, we designed it, and they came in and they put the guys to work, and a lot of the interior finishes, as far as the built-in furniture, were done with in-house staff, with Marcelino supervising the work. I think we have a lot of gratitude for him for that. Richard Burst and Delvia Jeffries, the legal department, a lot of contracts had to go through and reviewed. Nothing goes easy with those things, but we have to have somebody on board for that. Pete Sepulveda and David Garcia from Transportation, they were here to make sure that behind the scenes, and a lot of times I didn't see Pete a lot, but I know he was behind me making sure that things were being done and make sure we were done correctly. And I think a lot of devotion that took place from a personal person that I know is Eddie Salazar and David Gomez. He's not longer with the county, but they took a lot of effort. If you don't know them, I think you need to know these folks. They took a lot of day-to-day basis work for me, and they were here to make sure things got done on behalf of the county, so I get a lot of respect for them. Javier Villarreal and Rami from the judge's office. Rami, this guy here was here at the close. I mean, he's been here from the beginning, but at the end, he just really pushed things through. We want to make sure that things got done in a timely manner. We had, timelines to meet, and he made sure that things were being done. Real brief, I want to talk to you, and I apologize if I'm taking too much time, but just give you a brief history of when we first started here. I came in 10 years ago to look at the exterior of the building. It was in very, very poor shape. The terracotta was pretty much not done right. It was deteriorated. We had to replace just about 100% or restore 100% of that terracotta. And the terracotta that you see on the outside of the building is no longer available, so you had to take special details and work with special people to replace that. That had to be done as one of the first priorities. The exterior skylight above this rotunda that you see out here, there's just a giant skylight. That had to be replaced because water was just pouring in, destroying a lot of the leaded glass and a lot of the plaster. So that had to be worked on. The exterior windows had to be waterproof and retrofitted. So we basically retrofitted the outside before we came into the inside. But then one of the first things that we did when we came in the inside, we had to take out a lot of the non-historical material, because in the 60s, there was just a lot of things that were added here that really did not belong here. They were added as offices were needed with really no consideration of that. So a lot of that had to go. We had to do a lot of environmental assessment, abatement, to make sure that the building was environmentally safe. Then we brought in Joe R. Jones Construction to do the interior restoration, and they have picked it up. We wanted to have a blank canvas, if you will, before we started the restoration, because you can imagine, trying to design and bid a project like this with all these added walls. I'll give you, for instance, this room here did not look like this at all. When we first started, we had this entire area, my laser, was surrounded by another floor in this area here. There was a third floor. So you walked in here, there was many offices and many offices above, and that was non-historical. We had to take that out. So we had a large canvas now to make sure we recreated this. Excuse me, I'm gonna take some water. What we did is very much, and thankful for the Robert Runyon collection of the photographs. From those photographs and working with THC, we blew them up, detailed them. These capitals that you see right here, they were not there at all. We had to recreate those, work with Matt Hansen, our plaster artisan, that restored that. And it was very frustrating because you didn't have a clear picture of what that capital looked like other than the photographs. So we recreated, worked on it, We did it again and again and again until we finally we're sure that we got it. The frieze that you see here between the columns, that's the frieze, that was completely gone. And it became so frustrating that we could not get the details as you're looking at it now. And we were just trying to imagine what it would really look like until we found a piece that had been broken off when the demolition occurred, back in the 60s when they added this floor. A piece had fallen in between the walls, and we found it. So from that, we recreated a master replica of that frieze in order to replicate the entire area. These arches did not exist either. They're completely gone. We recreated those from plants or from the plaster from downstairs, and we made it fit accordingly. This niche was completely gone, and now we recreated it. There's a screen that comes down behind there, and it's all computerized and all high-tech. We've got the speakers, the lighting took place. These original chandeliers here, they're original. I mean, they're original replicas of what used to be here, but they're not original as they are. We had to modify air conditioning, electrical, and all the plumbing, as you know. And this ceiling between the arches that you see here, that ceiling is a cloth ceiling. And originally, that used to be a plaster ceiling. And from what we found out from the correspondence between Judge Dancy and Adley B. Ayers, the architect, the acoustics here were not really good. And so they added and retrofitted the ceiling by adding asbestos tiles, trying to do the sound absorption, and they still has some problems. So I'm working with THC, the Texas Historic Commission, and Sharon Fleming. She says, we got to have something that it works well. So we replaced that with something that works well, and with sort of perseverance that we did that. These auditorium seats that you here see, that you're sitting in, now they're not original, but they're very close based on photographs that we did, and then looking at photographs from the Brownsville High School, because Adley B. Ayers was the architect for that Brownsville High School as well. So we took great care in trying to make sure, thanks to Sharon Fleming again, to make sure that these seats were replicated as close as possible. So, and again, that was basically the inside. The outside, there was a lot of work to be done as well. We had to provide parking. The grounds had to be part of the building, because in 1912, there was just yard space. There were no trees. To meet and work with the city, we had to provide some landscaping and trees, and we had to provide that, and also some of the parking around. The cemetery. I guess you all read about the cemetery, and I must commend the Brownsville Herald for doing a good reporting. Ms. Trevino's over here, and I think we work with her, but I think the articles that have been coming out lately are just magnificent. I think that they're doing a good report in terms of that. As far as the cemetery, you know that we found it, we know where it is now, and thanks in great part to THC, their financial support, and also the county here, we're going to make a memorial and work with them on trying to preserve that, and we know what that is. Again, I just want to say in closing, I want to thank the commissioners, the judge, for all the back support that we have, the community. I think this is a jewel, and I think we need to work with the community as much as possible to make sure that we open up this grand room in this grand courthouse for all the young kids. I want to thank you all very much.
It's one thing to have the technical expertise to restore a building. It's quite another to have the heart for it. And I think you heard that in the voice of our architect and of all those that he mentioned that helped him. Our fourth, today on campus at UT Brownsville and yesterday, we had the great honor of having historian David McCullough on campus. David McCullough is a two-time Pulitzer Prize winner and historian of many books, including 1776, book on Truman, on Roosevelt, and many others. Today, he said, history is a guide to navigation in perilous times. History is who we are and why we are the way we are. Let us pause and understand our past in order to move safely into our future. The next three speakers all represent organizations that, like McCullough, are dedicated to promoting, protecting, and enhancing our nation's historic resources. First, Mr. Frank Ituria, a South Texas rancher a ranch located in Kennedy and Willacy counties, who has dedicated much of his own life to studying and preserving history. Today, he joins us in this rededication of the Texas, as a representative of the Texas Historical Commission. Nuestro amigo, Mr. Iturria.
Judge Hinojosa, members of the County Commission, Mayor Trevino, and members of the City Commission, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This is an exciting day for me to see the restoration of this fine old building. You know, this old courthouse holds a lot of memories for me. And with your permission, I'd like to tell you about some of them. When I was a little boy, about 6 years old, my father, who was a practicing attorney, used to try cases in this court. And he would bring me because he'd say, "Son, I want you to learn." Well, a little 6-year-old boy would sit right here, and after a little while, not realizing what was going on, would fall sound asleep. Then I used to get up to and wander around the stairs and the rotunda and all that, and I was always in awe as a little boy seeing that. Then when I became 12 years old in 1935, my father ran for mayor of Brownsville, and he held his political rallies right here in this courtroom. And the courtroom would be filled with people. People would be out on the lawn because the windows in those days were always open. People spilled over into the hallway to hear my dad give political speeches. I remember that very well. One time, I walked out into the lawn of the courthouse and saw this big granite monument that sits at the corner of 11th and Madison. And I walked up and I saw a bronze plaque there, and it says, "These were the pioneers of this area of Texas." And as I looked at the names, I came across a name that jumped out at me. It said, Captain Manuel Maria Iturria, my great-great-grandfather. So, back in the 1970s, there was a move to destroy this building. A demolition squad was going to come in here and tear it down. I went home and told my wife, Mary, I said, "Mary, you know what? They're thinking about tearing down the old Dancy building." She says, "Well, we're not going to let that happen." And as Mary does, she took it upon herself to do what she could to save the building. She called the office of the National Trust for Historic Preservation and found out that they were meeting in Marshall, Texas. So she gathered up all the historical documents that she could find on the building, and then she enlisted a young, recently elected county commissioner, Eddie Lucio, to go with her. She and Eddie flew to Shreveport, Louisiana, in the dead of winter, rented a car, drove through the snow to Marshall, Texas, to present their case to the National Trust. And by the way, I think Mary told me that Eddie Lucio, up to that time, had never seen snow. They presented their case to the National Trust and gave them the documents. The trust looked it all over, listened to them, asked them questions, took them right over the coals, and in the end, they unanimously agreed to place the Dancy building on the National Register of Historic Landmarks. That killed any thoughts of demolishing this building. And I would venture to say that if it hadn't been for Mary Iturria and Eddie Lucio, we might not be gathered here today. During the bicentennial in 1976, the state of Texas decided that they would plant a pecan tree in every courthouse in Texas. Mary, my wife, was chairman of the Bicentennial Horizon Committee, and she was asked to organize the planting of the tree here at the Dancy building. My school, A&M, furnished the tree, and the tree was planted. And today, if you walk out on the 11th Street side of the building, you'll see this majestic pecan tree growing. It looks beautiful. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the workers doing the restoration here were eating the pecans off of it. When Governor Perry appointed me to the Texas Historical Commission, one of my priorities was to see that the Dancy Building would meet the criteria for the Texas Historical Commission Courthouse Renovation Project. We finally got that done. All the requirements were met. And the Texas Historical Commission is participating in the restoration of this courthouse. And I might add that the Texas Commission donated a little over $3 million for the restoration. I want to thank and congratulate Judge Hinojosa and the Commissioner's Court for not being deterred by cost overruns and by the criticism that they endured. I salute them for going ahead and finishing this worthy project. Projects like this always encounter overruns. Anytime you do an old building over, it's going to happen. As an example, who knew that there was a 160-year-old cemetery across the street from Monroe Street? That was a shock to all of us when we found that. But today, the citizens of Brownsville and Cameron County have this magnificent crown jewel located right in the middle of our historic district, an asset that if you tried to build it from scratch today, you'd probably be looking at $100 million. That's what we have today as an asset. In 6 years, the courthouse will be 100 years old. And if the citizens demand that the property be maintained and repaired as needed, the Oscar Dancy Building will be here serving the citizens of Cameron County for another 100 years. So you can see why I have such strong feelings about this old building. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Mr. John Liston Now III, Chairman of the Texas Historical Commission. Mr. Now.
Judge, members of the court, mayor, and citizens, good evening. It is a pleasure for me to be here, to be here in two roles. First, as chairman of the Texas Historical Commission, and second, as chairman of the federal agency, the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. A quick minute, I'd like to introduce the executive director of the Historical Commission, Larry Oaks. Larry and his staff are really the troops that got it done from the Austin perspective. And I'd like to take a special moment to talk about Frank Iteria. Frank was a little bit modest. Judge, when we had that one little problem to deal with, Frank got me on the phone and said, "John, what are you going to do? Because we've got to get this job done." Well, everybody here knows you don't argue with Frank, so we got the job done. You know, this restoration of the Cameron County Courthouse marks the 39th restoration since the inception of the Texas Historic Courthouse Preservation Program in 1999. Today, York County redesignated this building as the official Cameron County Courthouse, and it is indeed spectacular. Tonight, this building returns to life. Voices and footsteps echo through the hallways and the courtrooms, once again with laughter, fear, and philosophy. Faces gaze up in admiration and awe at that wonderful colored glass dome. Judge, you said it so well. This once again becomes the people's building, and the state's congratulations to Cameron County. It is now one of 123 counties in Texas participating in this great program. I said a minute ago that I chair a federal agency, and I travel our country almost every day. Every time I'm in a new state, I can attest to the fact that these states speak highly of this courthouse initiative, and they look to us to learn how they might be able to develop some similar programs. Our courthouse program has been recognized nationally at the White House and internationally with awards. People ask me, how did this state get this program up and running? And I answer with a great deal of pride. Well, Texans honor their past while they look to their future. And there's no greater example here than this courthouse building. In a strong show of support a minute ago, one of the speakers talked about making certain that you care for the building. Because just like any other structure, especially one this old, needs work. Well, I'm proud to say that the Texas Land Title Association recently made a generous donation to the Historical Commission to help counties with newly restored courthouses, such as yours, provide the necessary upkeep and maintenance to keep these courthouses in their best condition. And Judge, we look forward to Cameron County representatives attending our upcoming workshop in March that was made possible with this TLTA grant. You know, it's important to note, as Frank did, that Cameron County never turned its back on the Dancy Building as you all know it. In 1979, the county built a new courthouse, and in 1981 renamed this building in honor of Oscar Dancy, renowned county judge who served in that capacity for 48 years. As we know, we have Judge Dancy's grandson with us tonight. Dancy is best remembered for his work developing the county road system, claiming that C in his name actually stood for concrete. Despite that, I didn't know this, he never owned or even drove a car. President Harry Truman called Dancy the county judge from Texas when Dancy visited the Oval Office. Truman said he, quote, wanted to meet a county judge who spent more money than he did. Must have been quite a gentleman. Now, what's the future of this county courthouse program? Cameron County joins the Success Group. The last legislative session enacted an $80 million piece of appropriation out of the TxDOT enhancement program. To date, we've had trouble making that work, so we have approached the upcoming legislature for an $85 million funding in general revenue, and we are confident that with the success of this kind of program, that the legislature will in fact refund the program and keep it moving. Those, like you, that have participated in the program have witnessed firsthand impressive downtown redevelopment, an increase in heritage tourism, and the restoration, importantly, the restoration of adjacent buildings and businesses. These restored county courthouses become economic engines. Every county we've built one and restored one, it's happened. Construction activity related to these projects has generated more than 5,000 new jobs and spawned surrounding downtown revitalization. As importantly, travelers from all over the state, the country, and from around the world travel to see these courthouses. Ladies and gentlemen, just a week ago, there was another brand new book published just on the Texas courthouse program. Former First Lady, Lady Bird Johnson once said, preservation ensures structural integrity. It relates to preserved object to the life of the people around it. And not least, it makes preservation a source of financial gain rather than simply another expense. Not only does this restoration promise economic returns, but I would submit, more importantly, It demonstrates a commitment and dedication to the heart of your community. These courthouses are the souls of our counties, for they have nurtured us on birth and they record our deaths. My hat and the hat of the state of Texas is off to everyone in Cameron County. I know that Atlee Bernard Ayers, who was the architect of this building in 1911 and 12, he went on to become the state architect of Texas. He would be proud of the restoration work of his original masterpiece. Congratulations to everyone in Cameron County, and to echo the judge and the mayor, wow, what a great job. Congratulations. Thank you.
In collaboration with many members here of the community, your university that is sharing a campus, as you know, with historic Fort Brown and Texas Southmost College, has instituted a new program, an academic program in historical restoration. And so not only will you have the people that want it done, you'll also have the technical expertise to make sure it can happen. We thank you for all of the help that you have been in establishing that program with us. To present now the plaque for the rededication of this courthouse is Mr. Stan Graves, the Director of the Architecture Division and the Deputy State Historic Preservation Officer of the Texas Historical Commission in Austin. Mr. Graves is responsible for coordinating the review of architectural changes and promoting preservation of the state's 222 historical courthouses. Mr. Graves, please join us.
I'm going to ask that my introductions be shorter when I realize how heavy that plaque is standing there waiting to be brought up to the podium. We had to weigh it to get it on the plane. It's 29 pounds of bronze, and we'll be presenting that in a moment to the judge. My name is Stan Graves, and I'm the director of the Courthouse Preservation Program in Texas. Amazingly enough, I get paid to do that job. It's been a dream of mine to do this kind of work since 1999 when this program began. And as John now said, this is the 39th rededication we've had. And in fact, just last Saturday, we rededicated the Cook County Courthouse in Gainesville on the Red River. So now we've gone from the Red River to the Rio Grande, and I think we truly can say this is a statewide program that's having a major impact in our state. Roberto did a great job of describing this room, but there's 27 other rooms in this building. I'd like to spend a few minutes telling you what was done in each of those. Now, I think you can see for yourself as you wander around this magnificent structure what all has been done, and I don't need to go into any more detail. As often happens when you're toward the end of the program, everything you could say has already been said, but as someone once said, it hasn't been said by everyone yet, so I will skip that and just go right into the presentation. Judge, if you would join me up here at the podium, I'm going to present this plaque, and this plaque symbolizes the partnership between the state of Texas and Cameron County, between the citizens of the whole state and the citizens of this county. This is the largest program impacting historic county courthouses since the Great Depression, when people were put to work, usually tearing off domes and tearing off towers and things like that. This is a program that's actually bringing these buildings back, and it's a great program, and we really, really appreciate all of the hard work of the citizens of Cameron County, and we hope you will display this plaque with pride in your courthouse.
Our next speaker is an accomplished attorney, and an author who has spent much of his life's work studying military history and contributing to its preservation. This evening, Mr. Dan Kennerly joins us in a different role to help us remember the man for whom this courthouse was named, Judge Oscar Dancy. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Oscar Dancy Dan Kennerly, grandson of Judge Oscar Dancy. Mr. Kennerly.
It's a true honor for me to be here this evening, and I want to thank Judge Hinojosa, commissioners, and all those responsible for this occasion for inviting me to this wonderful, wonderful commemoration. I wear the name Oscar Dancy Kennerly like you would wear the Medal of Honor. My grandfather was a fighter, and when he believed in something, he went all the way. He fixed bayonets, and he would charge whatever enemy was against Cameron County. One of the incidents that happened was that they were trying to raise his salary, and he opposed it. He says, Cameron County can't afford to give me a raise. And so they voted the raise anyway. But Judge Dancy was not afraid to face the enemy again. He bought dictaphones with that pay raise for the county. What a man. I'll never forget my mother trying to talk him out of running again. He was in his 80s, and there was a Republican from Harlingen, a young Republican. And this young Republican, and a turkey at law, he said, Judge Dancy's a fine man, but he's 80 years old. And we need youth and vigor. And so my grandfather purchased a full-page ad in the Brownsville Herald, and on that page, there was Judge Dancy standing with 4 bathing beauties on either side. And up at the top it said, hey, diddle diddle, Dancy's fit as a fiddle. And my mother had kittens. Why could you do such a thing? And down in the corner, he had a little certificate from his doctor saying he was in perfect health. And then over on the other side, he had a personal letter. And he said, while my opponent is asleep in bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, I am walking to work, to my office where I stay until sundown. And needless to say, he won that election. He was always looking out for the taxpayer and the people. He loved the people of this county. And I'll never forget, I was going to Baylor University, and it was a rare occasion that I got a good dinner, you know. And the telephone rings, and there is my grandfather on the other line. Dan, you're sure looking good. Would you like to come down and have dinner with me tonight? And I said, sure, Pap. Oh, boy, dinner, okay. And, of course, he was staying at the Roosevelt Hotel. He loved Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And so I went down there and went up to his room, and it was a kind of a run-down, shabby room. He was on his way to Washington, and he was riding the bus because he didn't want the people of Cameron County to pay any excess travel expenses. And so he said, Dan, look at that brown paper bag up on the shift robe over there and bring it over here. And I brought him the brown paper bag, and in it were 2 apples. And I gave one to him, and he said, these are really good for you. And I thought to myself, a dinner. This is my dinner. So his love of this county was just unbelievable. I recall staying down here many times when I was a young district attorney trying cases over in federal court, and I would stay with my Papaw and Mamaw at 953 West Levy Street, and the old house is still there, and I'd stay in that front bedroom, and one night I remember hearing someone walking on that front porch. And I looked at my watch, I said, it's 1:30 in the morning. And I went out there and I peeped and opened the door, and there was my Papaw pacing back and forth, talking to himself. I said, gosh, this guy has really gone crazy. He says, don't worry, Dan, I do my best thinking early in the morning. Now go back to bed, and I'll be up at 5. And so I went back to bed a little shaken because I was not sure that he was really all there. But Willie Morris, who wrote North Toward Home, was the editor of the Harper's Weekly. And he wrote back when Judge Dancy was 82 years old, and he made some references that I think are very appropriate, and not just from someone who knew him as a grandfather. When Sam Rayburn died in 1962, James Rustin described his political generation in such words that would also describe Judge Dancy. The old frontiersmen were from the land, usually born in poverty, matured slowly like good mountain whiskey, educated in the little colleges and night schools, or not at all, and full of common sense and the rhythms of the Bible. Dancy was an old-time politician in the best sense. The people knew the judge, and the judge knew the people. Dancy is a gentle, fine figure of a man with warmth and a humor that made the day we spent with him one of my most memorable in Texas. Almost every morning since 1922, he had stopped for a cup of coffee and a biscuit at the Texas Cafe and got to his office at 5:30 a.m. and stayed until dusk. When he was 17, he started teaching in a little school in the Blue Ridge backcountry at $20 a month. He says, I got very little education, but McGuffey's reader and the Blueback speller. McGuffey's was some of the best of the old-time wisdom you ever read. Some of the old-time masterpieces, I don't think they've improved on them. They should never be discarded. He got a law degree in Southern Normal University in Huntington, Tennessee in 1900 and came to Texas. He remembered the exact date, January the 9th, 1909. The first time he voted for a president was in 1904. He voted for Alton B. Parker over Teddy Roosevelt. When I first came to the valley, he says, it was a jungle almost. It was the greatest country under the flag, as beautiful as those North Carolina mountains are. And as much as I love going back to my relatives, my brothers and nephews in the mountains, I just can't be there 48 hours without missing it so much. I think the valley's got possibilities that you can hardly imagine. We've just scratched the beginning. Why, Texas has the broadest boundary of any state with Latin America. And we're the county that penetrates Latin America like no other county. Judge, said friend Sutherland, I want to ask you a very silly question. If you had the chance to talk with 5 people who ever lived an afternoon like this, I wonder who you'd choose. The judge thought a few seconds. He said, that's not a foolish question at all. The first would be the humble master. Then my second choice would be the Apostle Paul, and then Robert E. Lee, and then George Washington. And you may laugh at this, but I'd almost say George Washington Carver, that Negro over there. He paused for a moment to consider the consequences of that last choice. Now, there was a great man. There wasn't a selfish bone in his body. They offered him $100,000 to be a chemist, and he turned it down. And what great things he did for the South. And he found more things in the peanut than what was in the peanut before he started. You take that fella Paul. Now, wasn't he a spellbinder? They turned the beasts on him. The snakes bit him all over, and he got tossed into the Mediterranean Sea. And he just kept right on going. And Robert E. Lee, do you know he turned down a job as president of a big insurance company to go back to a little small college for $125 a month? As he opened this screen door and started to wave goodbye, Judge, Tom Sutherland said, you're in excellent company even when you're by yourself. Thank you.
Judge Dancy is looking down tonight and smiling, and no telling what he'll write in his next story. It has been a great pleasure to have you here this evening. The county has planned 2 more treats. One is that there are commemorative posters for all of you that'll be located outside by the tent, and you're invited to take one home and keep it as a memory of having been here today. They were provided by the Valley Federal Credit Union. And the second is the reception that will be immediately upon adjournment of this rededication. I now turn the meeting back over to the judge.
Thank you very much, Dr. Garcia. Let me, before I bring up Pete's son, I want to say a couple of things about our Master of Ceremonies. And there was a special reason why we invited her to be our Master of Ceremonies. One is because she is a leader in this community that has done so much on the most important issue that affects each and every one of us and our families is the education of our kids, to make them leaders, to make this community great. But also, she has led the way for the historic preservation of many buildings in Cameron County, starting with the university and all the buildings at the Fort Brown, of the original Fort Brown. And if you've been to the university, which I believe almost everyone here has, you can see what she's done with those buildings. The Alonso building on St. Charles Street, the Young building next to it, most recently the Cuero building. All these buildings that were falling apart, that were forgotten, that people wanted to tear down, that didn't seem like anyone could do anything with them, our president of our university had the vision and the foresight to understand how important it was for our history, for our heritage here in Brownsville and in Cameron County to take the time and invest in preserving them and making them beautiful. And if any of y'all have had the opportunity, they're places of gathering, places where we learn, where we come together as families, where we study, and that's why we asked her to be primarily the Master of Ceremonies. She is the person that really got it all started here in Cameron County, and I want you to give her a big hand for doing that. Thank you.
Could I address the court?
Yes.
I simply have to say that you all know that none of this happens because one person decides for it to happen. We have a master historian. We have many historians. Some are here, faculty members here today, like Dr. Tony Knopp. But we have someone in Larry Loff who has taught us about how to restore buildings and how to teach others restore buildings. We have a board of trustees that have led the way. I have simply been their servant in the process. Muchísimas gracias. I will thank them on your behalf.
Thank you. And we also have, as a special gift to Mr. Oscar Dancy Kennerly, a gift which is a crystal apple. And this little story that he told you about the apple, if you've seen outside, we have apples on the tables. Oscar Dancy, Judge Dancy, was known to always have an apple and carry an apple, and that was his trademark. In addition to the fact that he walked everywhere he went, he started early and finished late, he was the man with the apple. Here, on behalf of the Cameron County Commission. Before we have the benediction, on behalf of Sophia Benavides, I would ask her, Pete Benavides' son, to say a few words to the podium.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Commissioner, Judge. My name is Pete Benavides Jr., and I was asked to read the statement. In the days before my father suffered a stroke, he told me and my family how much he was looking forward to moving into the beautiful Dancy building. He's honored to have an office in a place that played such an important part in Cameron County's history. Right now, my father's fighting for his life, and we're all praying that he will soon be able to step into his new office and continue serving the residents of Precinct 1. My family would like to thank Judge Hinojosa, Commissioner John Wood, Commissioner Edna Tamayo, Commissioner David Garza, for their steadfast support during this difficult time. I want to say thank you on behalf of my family for all the prayers, the calls, the flowers, because, you know, my dad loves Brownsville, Texas. He loves the people of here. There's nowhere else where he'd rather be than here tonight. So that's why I'm so honored to be here on behalf of my father, Commissioner Pedro P. Benavides. Thank you.
Now, would you please rise for the benediction by Bishop Pena?
Loving Father, as we conclude this memorable event in the history of our community and of our county, we call upon your blessing. Bless the elected officials in our county, in our state, and in our nation. that together with the elected officials in our cities, they may govern with right judgment for the good of all. Bless the citizens of this graced and blessed nation, that we may all consciously exercise our responsibilities to vote and to monitor and guide the actions of our government, that it may truly be a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Bless the new arrivals in our land of immigrants, that they may receive the same welcome and care that previous immigrants have received, so that the words, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free," may ring as true today as they have in generations past. Bless each one of us, that we may travel safely home tonight, and that we may remain true to our nation's pledge of liberty and justice for all. Bless us, bless our families, bless our homes, bless our county, bless our nation. May God bless America. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Thank you very much for joining us all. We're very honored to have had you here.